I've got so much going on, I can't see the Omni chat room.
Hey, at least we got rid of that window tab thing.
Yes, that helps. All right, if we're streaming and I'm on my channel, why am I not seeing that stream? Come on now, YouTube, show me my stream. I know it's happening. Hello, hello. No, I still don't see it on YouTube yet. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, let's go to studio. Hello, YouTube. Where's my stream? Ah, thank you, YouTube. Now I can pop out my chat and get our session started.
Get on Twitter.
Chat has been popped out. Now, there's got to be a Twitter chat somewhere because I'm reading that the software allows it. Once I do the upgrade, I haven't done the upgrade yet. There's an update that says it allows chatting on Twitter and Facebook, if I remember right. So, but it's in the middle of the week and I'm not going to hit the update button. I'll have to wait until the end of the week. I don't want to blow anything up.
Yeah, no, I might as well wait.
All right, Peter. What do you think surprised rate hike today? No. I like ES Weekly chart. Yes, the ES Weekly chart looks fantastic. NASDAQ weekly chart looks like it's had a moment. Somebody punched it in the eye. But as we talked about in last night's video, you know what? Let's pull the charts. We'll do it that way. If you look at, let's just get rid of some of this stuff and make it a little cleaner so we can see what we're looking at.
Put on YouTube as well.
Very good. Thank you, Mikey. All right, nice and clean. So ES had a little bit of a move from its all-time highs, came down a little, but not all that much. But on the daily, that's a bit of a drop, right? It started here. That's the all-time high. That's a little bit of a drop. But when you go out to the weekly, there's nothing. Nothing has happened yet. Nothing, right? Look at that. Nothing has happened. So if you're looking at the YouTube, you can see these charts. In fact, is there a link that I should give you? Yeah, it's probably my channel link. Let me give you a link. Maybe this will help.
Yeah, just running around with the girl. Do you need anything?
Maybe just something to drink.
Sure.
And then I'm good to go.
You care what or surprise?
Well, I could use a cup of tea. To be honest, if that's nothing, just whatever. If that can't be done, whatever. This should be a link that'll take you to my YouTube. And from there, you can see the charts. I think it's happening on Twitter at the same time right now. Of course, in the live trading room. Maybe on Instagram as well. Yeah, here's the thing, though. The daily doesn't have one. Right? Wait, we just need daily. We don't need to change charts. Flat tops produce market drops. Absolutely, but usually it's on a daily, not on a weekly. And if we just switch this back to daily, we had no flat top here. Okay, whenever you want to listen to my command, thank you very much. Back to daily. See, there was no flat top at the top. It just kind of made a high, a little bit lower low, a little bit lower low, a little bit lower low, and then down we went. And NASI, if I remember right, is the same sort of thing. It never really put in a flat top up there. No, it did not. The NASDAQ did the same thing. It put its high in, and then a lower high, a lower low, a lower high again, and just dropped a little bit, and that was the top. So, and I think we talked about yesterday about weekly formations. The biggest problem I noticed with weekly formations, unless you're a fund manager, no one seems to have the patience to stick around for a weekly formation to actually work itself out. And, a weekly formation could take 6 weeks to work itself out. And when you start doing the math on that, and you go, well, we're talking 30, 35, 40 days. People don't have that kind of attention span. Unless, of course, you're doing that on purpose as a manager, you're managing a fund. So I noticed that, the techniques in the daily work better for that reason because more people are willing to react to them in a faster fashion. Anyway, but yes, kind of could be a flat top up there, Peter. You never know. But remember, it's midsummer. It's basically the middle of the year. We don't expect all that. We don't expect it to just go gangbusters straight up in the middle of the summer. There's always some kind of crazy play in the summertime. Hey, Joel. But I do think, as we're seeing already, no matter what happens, we head down. The charts are asking us for downside. They're begging for downside, but we talked about that yesterday. I think there's some work that we have to take out underneath the bottom of the book before we go back up. Clean out the book. All right, so Fed 146. Does anybody have a link that YouTube won't ban me for playing? If I play something in the background on TV, YouTube's going to ban this video. So I need a link that we can play online that is public and they won't ban it. Or copyrighted, I should say. All right, then. We'll find the link. Usually my researchers just help me out on this stuff. Well, I don't want to wait for the press conference. No. That's different. I want to watch the meeting. So where's the meeting? I need a new window for that. Fed meeting. That's not going to get us there. So this link says it's the Fed Live, but it looks like it's the Fed press conference live. I want to watch the Fed meeting live without TV. No, either he holds a press conference after. Are they calling that the meeting itself? We'll see. When it comes on, we'll see what the Fed link shows me. I'll show you what. This is probably it. This is the link I'm looking at. Excuse me. All right, so now if in the background I put on the news, this YouTube video will be they'll stop it from being played in most countries, so I can't listen in the background. You guys got to kind of tell me. I'll see it when the market moves. I'll know what they did, but you guys got to let me know if you don't mind when they make the no rate move announcement. Go Omni Phoenix. Love you, baby. If you guys aren't in the Omni Phoenix, what are you waiting for? Thank you, Mikey.
You're welcome. I only did the half and half before the water thing, so let me know if that tastes weird or if it doesn't taste like there's enough.
No, I usually pour the half and half into the tea bags and let it sit
first.
for a long time before I pour the water in. So you did it right, actually.
Because I didn't know if that was enough half and half or only a little.
Thank you, sir.
No
Appreciate
problem.
it.
See you in a bit.
Nobody makes tea like you, Dana. I want to do another Omni Camp abroad just so you can make my tea in the morning. He does make good tea, I have to say. Mike Sedaros also made good tea. All right, looking at the board, everything's kind of in line except for crude. And crude's, what's crude? How's crude not in line? When's crude out of line anymore? There's no such thing. Let's see, 152. I guess what we could do is do something silly like put up a NASDAQ chart and turn it into a 1 minute. And then we'll see just how insane this gets when the press conference starts. Or at least at 2 o'clock when they make the announcement. Let's see, that was chart 8. Yes. Double click it so it's a full. So this is a 1 minute chart. Now, I will tell you, this could be the same link. Let me check. Oh, can't do it down there. Yeah, it's the same link. I've already got that sitting up here, waiting for the press conference. Let's label it. I don't want to give anybody the wrong impressions. I do not look at charts this small. I haven't for many, many, many moons. All right. We'll make that blue because we don't want to jinx the NASDAQ, even though down is likely where it's going to go. Well, we don't want to jinx it because I prefer the upside. And in a few moments, we'll see what's going to happen. Now, I have to keep my eyes on everything else, so I'm only going to leave this up for a minute because I want to see the rest of the board. Las Vegas. He moved to Malta. I know one of the biggest guys in Malta. I can't believe you're saying that Al went to Malta. I actually know a really big guy in Malta. He's part of a company I'm building here in Vegas called Technotainment Streaming Media. Jay, yes, I'm in Las Vegas. I can't believe he moved to Malta, though. That's just an interesting place to go. That's off the coast of Italy. It's a small island country. His parents were from Malta. I did not know that. Beautiful scenery. The houses are like built into caves. I mean, it's just gorgeous when you look at it. I haven't gone to Malta with my buddy, but he goes back and forth constantly. All right, so this is chart 8. We'll look at it right about the time the Fed is going to. Oh, I didn't know he was single. I didn't know Al was single. Is that new for him? He hasn't always been single. I remember me and Al. The second day, I met him on a Monday. On a Tuesday, we were having a actual fist fight in the booth. I had him in a headlock. Of course, we became good friends. And his little brother, um, John, I remember meeting, I remember working with him for a while and then meeting him at least 15 years later when he was, fully matured, did well in the business. And he said, Oscar, man, you taught me so much about what I do now. And I was just like, damn. I didn't think I had that much of an effect on him. It's very cool to see. Yeah, I do remember Al was married. I never knew he broke up. Really, the only people I stayed in touch with from the trading floor by accident were the people who stayed in the trading community. Everybody else that went off to be whatever they became wasn't my business. We just sort of lost touch with each other. If you stayed in this business, I stayed in touch with you. Yeah, well, do you remember when we had gold options, Joel, the first day that they opened? I got put in the booth with Al. I was brand new. It was my second day at work. I didn't even know what the floor was. I didn't know anything about it. I got put in the booth with Al. They told me, Al will show you what to do. It was the first day gold ever traded options in New York on the gold pit. And on day two, we ended up in a fist fight. But it worked out really well at the end, of course. Lots of times friends end up becoming friends after fighting. Yeah, but I remember I organized the booth really well. Um, September. Yeah, because I think I started with Dominic in August, my birthday of that year, of 82. I went over to, it was called Great American Trading Inc. at the time, GATCO. Um, then it was Dominic, then it was Osceola, Uranowitz, and Wharton, and it became all kinds of companies. But, yep, yeah, you're right. I forgot. I used to smoke in the booth. I forgot about that, Joe. That's very cool. Do you remember the times I used to sneak up I snuck up like 300 hot dogs, stack of pizzas. I used to bring stuff up that nobody else could get up. We used to make diversions downstairs in the write-up room. I'd bring my buddy Kenny Maselli, and make him like start a fake fist fight over by the write-up room. And when they ran to him, I'd run in with the pizzas. We always found a way to create a diversion so I could get in. But 300 hot dogs was the coolest I ever think. The coolest breach I ever did of Jackson and the rest of the guards trying to stop me from bringing food in. I think I did a bag full of chicken palm heroes once too. New low in soybeans just started to crack. So inflation. Remember we were talking about the inflation going in the wrong direction? Anyone watching my videos recently, do you remember me showing you all the inflationary charts and we were heading in the wrong direction? Jackson was the name of that security guard. Oh, it's 2 o'clock. Boom. Gold went right to that spot again, huh? Oh, shit. I have to assume they did nothing by looking at the movement of this screen right here. They didn't do anything. The rate, there's no rate movement. And with my experience, if there was a rate movement, I would say that then the Fed's gone crazy. Something's wrong with them. Yeah, that would make perfect sense. And the movement in the markets show you that it's unchanged. Oh, man. Yeah, Jackson. That was his name. 3% is one of the quarter point raise. You know, luckily it was only 3. Um, if we didn't have this crude issue, then we would be needing to raise rates by now. If this was what was going on in our inflation pricing, but it wasn't crude, we'd have to raise rates. You know, if you've got enough experience, you realize this is only about crude right now. It's not even about interest rates anymore. It's about crude. You get the price of crude down, and everything is going to take off. You know, people tend to turn this political instead of what it is. It's about markets and money and movement. But you do realize that the administration has spent the last year and a half, 2 years bringing trillions and trillions of dollars of investment. And just last night, I watched an expo that showed hundreds and hundreds of factories being built, spending those trillions and trillions of dollars because a lot of countries want to now build their product here. And that's going to create a huge, huge backdraft. It's going to push us, a tailwind. It's going to push us higher. So that fundamental alone is going to work, whether crude goes down or not. If crude doesn't go down, I promise you the market is going to realize that the new price for crude is between 180 and it's going to go up anyway. It'll just get used to it and absorb it. If you can knock the price of crude down, it'll really go higher. So every time we've ever had a situation like this, we get into a war, the price of crude goes up, the markets get funky a little while, the war stays on, the markets get used to it, and away we go. In this scenario, the problem is every time the markets try to get used to the war on, it ends, and then it starts again, and then it ends, and it starts again, and then it ends, and it starts again. We just had a 2-day end of the war, and it just started again yesterday. You know, the markets aren't used to this kind of behavior. It's not like the markets are used to seeing war start and stop 57 times in 156 days. No one's ever seen that. So the markets just don't know what to do with that right now. And they still haven't cracked. Could you just imagine if we weren't having the conflict where it's on, off, just stay on or stop? And if the price of crude dropped a little, just imagine how much higher we'd be by then. Because look at how resilient the market is now with all that headwind. This is your S&P market. With all that headwind, we never bothered looking at that 1 minute chart, did we? Let's go to a daily. And then we can even take that out to the weekly, because that makes more sense if you ask me. We'll go to the weekly. And this is all. The war, the price of crude getting to almost 100, this is all that it made the actual big market, the S&P, do. That is it, kids. From the high to where we are now, that's your entire move. Not much has happened yet. Now, I'm not saying we're not going to crack pretty hard today. We have to see what Warsh is going to say. I don't think he's going to be able to say anything that's not going to make the markets crack, but we'll see. Maybe he's got something for us. But a lot of damage has not been done. Now, if you think about the amount of pressure on these markets fundamentally, why is the S&P all-time high an inch away from where we are now? Because it really hasn't done a lot of damage. So, but that big fundamental of all these companies now starting to move here and They're creating the factories now. A year from now, the products will start being made. Just imagine where the SLP will be by then. So, don't fall in love with the downside, I guess. No matter what happens this summer, we still have half a summer to get through and another half a trading year. Don't fall in love with the downside. It's not set up to be a big down year. It's called passionate, not mad. I'm not angry, Jay Wessler. I don't get angry when I lose. I got angry when I got robbed for $1 million. It was a different story. That made me angry. But I'm not usually mad at anything. Not when it comes to these things. Not when it comes to markets. So remember, Memphis, Joel, everybody listening right now, Jay, we don't know what's going to happen. We got a press conference coming. The Fed not doing anything was expected, right? If they had done something, the markets would have went crazy. No one expected that. It's going to be this. What's going to come out of the Jabberjaw? That's going to make a huge difference. We haven't had a chance for him to do this yet. We're in a quagmire spot. We're just about to do something with rates. We're not sure when it's going to be. And now a press conference is going to come out with him explaining. Let's see just how good this guy is. I think he's suave. I think he's intelligent. I think he's been in this business for a long time. I think he's going to know what to say. But I don't know that because I haven't watched him speak. We're going to learn him. We need to learn this boy. I've done research on him. I know who he is, but I haven't learned him because I got to see him operate to learn him. I think he is, to be honest, suave and debonair. I should put together an ETF. Joel, what would it be? Just like an Omni ETF? Let's see if we can make the Omni ETF itself. So you have Omni trades and then an ETF that tracks the Omni trades. And then you trade the ETF instead of the Omni trades. Holy cow, that would be really cool, Joel. That would be intelligently cool. I don't know if I can do both. I don't know if I can be as effective of calling these markets if I'm also running a fund, though. Trading for myself is another story. That's just hitting a button and then looking back at the screen. Running funds involves a job. The job for me is to be really good with markets. I don't know if I can do the fund as well, but I certainly could have someone else put the trades on. Oh boy, look at bonds. 110.06.05.04. We don't need that, but we don't know what's going to happen yet. We got a press conference. So it's interesting, Joel, because they used to say, "Oh, you're a slave to your screen," and I go, but I'm at the amusement park and I'm watching a whole bunch of rides. And that's a band over there. And this is a roller coaster. That thing over there. I don't even know what to call it, but I love looking at that. I mean, I never felt like I was a slave to the screen, but I do see that there are people that don't know how to treat that properly. Now, I will look at the screen as often as I need to make sure I can remember almost every tick that happened in every 24-hour session. But at the same time, I know enough to set a bunch of alerts and let that go. I don't have to see the screen. I just have to hear the action if it moves. And because I know I'm going to be basically tied to my screen, I've got an office like the one you see here. Well, you probably can't see it unless I put the overhead camera on. And then can you guys see that? Let me see if I put the overhead camera on, maybe you guys can see. Hold on just a moment. All right. So, no, excuse me. Let me mute that suckers. Right, we should be good from here. It's got to be muted as well. And we're good to go. Close the webcam. Nice. All right, so Joel. And let's see what we're looking at here. Where is my picture? Man, if you knew the amount of things I need to do sitting here myself to keep this running, you'd ask me why I even bother doing this streaming. It's a lot. But it's okay. I don't mind. Can you see this office that I'm sitting in right now? Let me see how much bigger I can make this. All right. So, can you see the office I'm sitting in right now on YouTube? Can you guys see this? Hello, hello, hello. I've got it set up like this. Outside, there's two of them. I've got it set up in my living room. I've got it set up in my bedroom where there's two of them. I've got setups all over this property. And then I've got laptops in case I don't want to be sitting at one of my desks. But I've got setups like this all over the property. So even if I have to play screen, if I got to be tied to my screen, at least I can move around. You know what I mean? I've got outdoor desks, 2 different ones, 3 different outdoor desks, and 6 different indoor desks. So I could be just about anywhere, and they're all hooked up to everything. So I'm right there online, all my quotes, my trading, everything's at the same place in each one of those locations. So yes, you tend to have to be tied to the screen a bit, but you can make it a lot of fun too. So everybody in the YouTube, excuse me, everybody in the Omni Trading Room, if you just click this link, you'll be able to see whatever charts we go over when we pull charts. In fact, because we still have some time till the press conference, let's go take a look at what happened with Tesla and SpaceX. Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting that SpaceX literally went right to the technical call, and since it's been bouncing? Isn't that insane the way the market literally dropped from 160 to 107 and has had 2 up days since 107? That's insanity. How can analysis work that well? That's just broken. That's so spooky, I would be afraid to take the trade myself, but it worked. And Tesla, what's the low today? Because it just keeps going. Had to get under 300 today, right? Let's see, what's the low so far? $299.70. It's on its way to 282. That's not what we want. We want this guy. Now, bonds are covered by my camera, which we cannot have right now. I'd rather cover the grains and leave the bonds in the... Over here, we've got 30-year bonds, 10-year notes. Above that is gold and silver. These 4 right here are going to go nuts after he starts speaking. And then, of course, everything up here, all the indices. Bitcoin is here, Ethereum, crude, soybeans, wheat, soy meal, corn, oats. It just keeps going, by the way. If I make it smaller, there's more quotes that just keep on going. And then there's 30, 40 rows down of quotes. but I tend to try to watch as many as I can all day long: coffee, sugar, cocoa, cotton, orange juice, Solana, platinum, palladium, copper. I kind of watch everything that I can. Down here are all the stocks, of course. We watch all of them all day long. Just want to stay in tune. But I'm a tape reader. I like watching. I read the ticker board. I don't really need the charts unless I'm coming up with a trade location where I have to enter or exit a trade. But barring that, I don't really need the charts. I just watch the tickers. Oscar, do you think power stocks like SMR and Oklo will become popular again and recover? Power plant stocks should be a must considering all the data centers. Well, here's the thing. Because it got so it got to it basically developed into something much bigger than anybody realized it was going to be. The amount of data center needed and the amount of power needed. They basically made rules for Meta and Google and you name it, Amazon. If they're out there and they need data, huge data center types, they got to build their own power plants. The power plants, of course, have to be environmentally friendly. They have to make them as quiet as possible. They have to send extra power out to the grid around them to make the neighborhood's power less expensive, and they have to foot the bills themselves. So that means they don't really need SMR or Oklo because they got to do this stuff themselves unless they contract them to help them out. Data centers, well, if you get a data center to make a plant, then we're doing really well because you could start off with, at phase 2 and let it build phase 1. That'd be a wonderful world, Peter. But you need a power plant first, then a data center, or you build a data center first, then a power plant, but it doesn't work without the power plant. Now, I think it's a great idea to fast track these cats, let them build as many as they need to, wherever they want to, because in about 6 years, they'll all be in outer space anyway, and anything down here is going to be stupid, old, antiquated, and need too much money to run. But you got to start somewhere. Build them on Earth for now. They'll all be in outer space in a few years. Joel, why would they do that? You know, Todd, I don't want AI's take on stuff. I'd rather get the information myself and try to come up with my own take on it. I just don't want to, when it comes to needing information in certain areas, I like AI when I need help on something. That AI is smarter than figuring out than a human. But when it comes to figuring out what I think of an assessment of a situation, I don't want AI to make I don't want to make a summary and read AI's summary. F you AI in that department. AI, we need a new medication. There's a new disease. We don't know what it is, but we want to take these 3 medications, put them together and see what happens. AI is the best thing that's ever been invented right there and then. Beautiful thing. But for me, there's a lot of information out there. I want it to be disseminated into something that you think I would want to read. I'd rather do all that myself first and then look at the AI's dissemination afterwards. Just to make sure that AI doesn't put things in my head before I had a chance to put my own things in my head. Then I'll use AI to reinforce. So, like if I was going to write a report, I would write the entire report. I would proofread it. I'd go over it 57 times. Then I would ask AI if it would want to make any changes. And then I would maybe or maybe not accept its changes. That's kind of, I've been that way since the internet started. I've been that way with any new technology. You'll never find me spending the entire day floating around on Twitter and Instagram and wasting my life on this phone. This phone, I do all that stuff everyone else does, but I use it to do better for myself and more as a phone than a waste of my time. So I try to take whatever technology is out there and use it what I think is to the best of my ability without getting caught up in it. So I've been worried because I've watched AI have a bias and a personality, and it scares the shit out of me that it's got a bias. I've asked it questions where it truly is biased, and I'm like, I do not need an opinion from a non human, no less. It's not even human. Where am I getting opinions from you from? You know what I'm saying? How could you have one? You have no feeling, you have no opinion. But they offer their opinion, whether people realize it's an opinion or not. AI can remember every word in every book, in every page it's ever read. And it remembers where the period was in the what paragraph on page 397 of an 800-page book. It remembers all of it. When you ask it a question, it goes through all that knowledge, just like any human who went through college and studied books. It goes through all its knowledge, and it comes back with an answer. The thing about AI is it can actually remember everything it's ever read, but it's still going to take that information and offer its opinion to you. That's the part of AI that bothers me. So you got to be careful whether it's opinion or fact. Ask it for specifics, you get facts. Ask it to summarize, and you get opinions, and that you got to be a little careful of with AI. Press conference in 9 minutes. So, Joel, you didn't answer the question. I didn't research it. Why did Morgan and Goldman hit their hedge funds with collateral demands? All right. In our trading world, that's like a bank coming to you and calling in your loan all at once. We don't want payments anymore. We want the loan back. You got your loan called upon. Why are they calling upon clearing firms? What's going on with that, Joel? Do you know? Live Glasgow. Yes. Sure. How are you? Uh, so he used to do all that scale trading stuff. Ken Roberts, the greatest money manual ever written, the guy with the cowboy hat. He was a friend of mine. A little bit older than me, but I ended up meeting him a bunch of times. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and it was half that price, by the way. But that includes your hotel, it includes food, computer, it includes everything. Yes, it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Well, we also have I also have Omniacs that follow our daily trades. So I have the Omni will put out a trade. Almost every day we find trades somewhere, and the Omni puts out trading signals that people follow from opening the trade until the trade's done. And Dano says, and then you get to meet me. Sorry about that. Here's what we should do. Right now, I'm actually streaming live on Twitter and YouTube, and I'm all over the place. So, yeah, this wouldn't be the time for us to continue this conversation. But I do remember you, and I like the fact that you worked with those guys back in the day. Those were interesting times. I don't know if it's easier or harder now, but those were interesting times back in the day. But yeah, if you want to call me on, either, let's see, what's today? Tuesday? Today's Wednesday Fed meeting. Call me towards the end of the week, Thursday, Friday, a little bit later in the day will be fine. All right. Thank you so much. Bye. All right. Does anybody remember a guy named Ken Roberts? He's a guy that used to sell a trading system way back in the 80s, 90s, I guess. Possibly 2000s. Maybe he lasted that long. He was a guy with a beard and a big cowboy hat. His name was Ken Roberts, and he wrote something called The Greatest Money Manual Ever Written. So, okay, do you remember the days of infomercials? When there was nothing else on TV past 12 o'clock at night, but thousands of infomercials. If you stayed up at night and would watch them, some of them would make you want to go out and buy real estate. Remember that stuff? He was the king of infomercials back then. He did lots and lots of them. So a lot of his traders I ended up running into over time. Because me, I day trade. I'm in the thick of commodities. I'm all kinds of stuff that he does, only maybe a little more hands-on than he was. So I ran into a lot of his crowd. And it turns out the lady I was just speaking to was their marketing and trading back office campaign for Ken Roberts. In other words, anybody who opened up an account with Ken, they ran all that stuff for him. So that was the conversation that you heard me having on the phone. It was kind of cool listening to somebody from the days of old. Martin Sheets, does that ring a bell? I remember that being some guy with infomercials, buying or selling real estate when I was 15, 16, 17 years old. I remember those commercials. In fact, I swear, I used to sit up and watch those at night, and I would say to my dad, we would ride along Highland Boulevard on Staten Island. I was only 10, 12 years old. I'd go, Dad, I saw in a commercial last night that if you want to buy a property right now on Staten Island, that all you have to do is pay the tax lien on it. Whoever used to own it didn't pay their taxes, and all you have to do is pay off their taxes, and you get to own that property. And we're driving along Highland Boulevard where there's nothing but straw field after straw. I mean, it was swamp after swamp after swamp on both sides of the street. And my dad's like, oh, come on, nobody's ever going to want this nonsense. I'm not going to buy that. Why do you think there's a tax lien on it? Because the people who owned it abandoned it. Tony Robbins, oh yeah, infomercial king. So, of course, my dad would laugh at me going, Dad, would you lend me $25,000 so I could buy that lot over there when I was 16 years old, 15 years old? And he would laugh at me. Well, as it turned out, those lots ended up becoming worth tens of millions of dollars. But by then, I was convinced that I could do this on my own. And I started driving a cab, cutting cold cuts at Walbaum's, working on the trading floor, and going to college all at the same time, if you can believe that. And I decided that I was going to buy a property because I kept watching these goddamn infomercials all night long, and they are telling me that it is possible for a person to buy a property. So right around my 21st birthday, I had enough money saved. I had $10,000 saved from literally driving cabs and working on the trading floor and everything else I was doing. And I went to the Dime Savings Bank and I said, I found a house. I want to borrow money and I want to buy the house. The guy says, how old are you? 21. What kind of an income do you have? It's embarrassing. I'm just getting started, right? I'm not a broker yet. I'm just becoming a broker, but I'm still a clerk making $250 a week or whatever the number is. So I don't have a big income to show him. So I said, what kind of loans can you get? And he said, well, come meet my brother. He introduces me to his brother, Alan Gaines, who's a lawyer who closes mortgages, because back east you need lawyers to close mortgages, and he's the mortgage broker for the Dime Savings Bank. So his brother, Alan, takes me on the side and goes, Oscar, what do you need? I said, well, I need a non-income verification loan because I got great credit and I got money to put down, but my income's too low. They won't give me a loan. Ah, no problem. You'll see. I don't think it took 45 days. They gave me, some 21-year-old kid who makes $250 a week, a loan for $80,000 to buy a house. So I went, wow, you actually lent me that money? Are you people crazy? My father wouldn't lend me money to buy property. What are you people nuts? But they lent it to me. Well, I thought it was a great purchase, and I fixed it up, and I brought the bank in a year later and asked them what it was worth. They said, well, you paid 90,000 for it. It's worth about 180. I said, good. Would you give me 50? They gave me 50. I put it down on another house. Fixed that house up. I paid 200 for that. They said, oh, it's worth 300. They gave me another 100. I put down that on a third house. And that's kind of what I did when I lived back east till I moved out here. Let me hit the start button. Oh, was there no volume? Was there no volume? I'm not hearing volume.
You know, our committee decided to vote by a 9-3 vote to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 3.5% to 3.75%.
I gotta watch the quotes. I can't.
The committee is continuing its policy of making ample reserves in the banking system. The economy is showing impressive resilience. Even with recent shocks,
I agree.
The trends are positive and
I agree.
reveal solid growth.
I just told that to my room,
Job
sir.
gains have kept pace with the workforce, and the unemployment rate has changed little. Inflation remains elevated relative to the committee's 2% goal. The committee remains resolute. You've heard this before, but we will deliver price stability. As before, the policy statement conveys just the facts. It's steering clear of forecasting, a choice we consider especially prudent at these uncertain times.
This
Uncertainty,
is brilliant,
however,
what he's saying so far.
does not mean a lack of clarity. For some households, businesses, and market professionals, 5 years of high inflation have left a mistaken impression that's hard to shake, that the Fed's implicit inflation target was somehow above 2%. Let me reiterate, there is no soft inflation target. There is no soft implicit target, not on this committee's watch. There's only a target, and it's 2%. Not one of my FOMC colleagues is under any illusion. We have begun a new chapter, and we understand that the 5+ years of inflation above target cannot be cured in 9 weeks, or by a single month of modest price decreases. This Fed will not waver. Our credibility rests on performing our duties and delivering on our responsibilities. Americans are right to expect that because our nation's prosperity depends on it. To the regulars here in the press room, today's assessment might sound familiar, yet there was nothing inertial about our discussions, our policy, or our strategy.
Inertial.
2 economic developments are worth highlighting. The first is a very notable change since our last meeting 42 days ago. Nominal and real yields are materially higher across the Treasury curve. In fact, some of the increases in market interest rates between FOMC meetings are among the most significant in the last 2 decades, ranking around the top decile or so. But if the committee didn't change its policy rate, what happened? In the intermeeting period, market attention centered on real data and real economic developments. Prices reacted in real time to incoming information, and the reduction in forward guidance may have been a factor. Market participants are learning to play the ball, not the referee, and market prices will continue to respond in the direction and magnitude they see fit.
Okay, that makes sense.
This is, in my view, a change for the better, and we're just getting started. After all, the central bank need not always and everywhere be the center of attention. I understand the desire for rolling forecasts and commentary from this committee, but for our part, we need to observe market reaction to developments, direct and unfiltered. I want to stress, of course, that decisions by this committee matter a great deal. and where necessary and appropriate, we will not hesitate to act. A second economic development is one that I noted at the congressional oversight hearings this month.
So far,
But
you
it's
have
worth
said nothing.
repeating.
I love it.
The most striking feature of the economy is the strong growth of business investment.
This
The
isn't
surge in
hawkish at all.
high-tech
This is
capex has
good.
been remarkable. But that does not necessarily make the Fed's role any easier. In the AI-related category of high-tech equipment and software, the most recent data shows 4-quarter growth rates of nearly 20%. This is helping to sustain the healthy momentum of manufacturing output. More generally, CapEx is preparing the ground for future growth. Nonetheless, the precise timing and magnitude of effects on the supply side remain hard to predict. FOMC meetings produce policy decisions, but just as important is candid discussion of the big things that matter most. That too is a priority in this new chapter at the Fed. In our meeting, vigorous discussion centered on 4 questions, which I will enumerate. First, we talked a lot about the implications of the past 5 years of high inflation on the current policy conjuncture. To echo an old phrase, has the past really passed? Second, my colleagues and I considered the economic shocks of recent years: strained supply chains arising from the pandemic, military conflicts, energy supply disruptions, substantial increases in tariff rates, and yes, the surge in AI-related investment. These differ in their sources. Do they also differ in their effects on output and employment? Third, we took up the related question of price increases arising from shocks. The business CapEx boom, for example, is driving up prices of memory and logic chips and associated AI infrastructure.
Oh, that's not
Do
gonna
these
last.
changes indicate a broader inflationary dynamic,
No.
or do we just focus on them because they are under the bright streetlight? Finally, we discuss monetary policy tools and strategies for achieving stable prices. If, as the Fed has long held, interest rate policy should be its primary monetary policy instrument, how much accommodation are we getting from the balance sheet? In all of this, our work is advancing at the Fed. We're asking the right questions. And in this consequential time, we know how very much depends on getting the right answers. Of course, you've all arrived with questions of your own, so let's turn to them now.
Oh, that was great. He didn't say anything at all. It was like listening to no words. It was perfect.
Thank you for taking our
It
questions.
was
Mr. Chairman.
perfect.
You've had a couple months now, or 9
He's
weeks,
great.
whatever number it is, to see the markets behave in the absence of forward guidance. I'm wondering if you could tell me, what message are you getting from the markets as to where policy ought to be right now?
Yeah, so I think officially it's 8 weeks and 4 days, but I'm not counting.
Officially.
The message from markets is the message from markets. What I've really been trying to do, Steve, as I think you appreciate, your colleagues appreciate, is getting an unfiltered message from markets, getting a direct message.
Oh, I like this guy's
letting
answers.
buyers and
He's
sellers meet at
good.
prices for treasuries, for the foreign exchange value of the dollar, and then trying to judge for ourselves, what does that mean about our remit? How are we doing on inflation? How are we doing on employment? We're trying not to interfere with that market signal. That's part of the reason why we've been somewhat spare in our words, why we pulled back from forward guidance. So they're reacting to events, I would say, much more directly over the 42 days since we last met. This is a good thing. As I mentioned in the prepared remarks, we've seen a material tightening, not just in nominal rates, but in real rates too. And
But he's
we're
not saying
observing it.
anything. He's
We're trying to
great.
stay out of that.
He's just
because,
perfect.
many of you might be interested in our reaction function. We're interested in the reaction of financial markets.
I get that, Mr.
You know, if you have an operation and you have to
Well,
write
the
something
question
to
is,
the NFA, you want to always write
the
something
markets
that's
are
so
fluctuating,
arbitrary that it doesn't
what I'm
actually
saying.
say anything.
And if it's
He's
real rates are
perfect.
higher,
I would hire him in a
it would
minute.
suggest that that's where the funds rate ought to go.
Yeah. So,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, it's your question. So, interpreting markets is an imperfect business.
Correct.
We central bankers, like market pros, can think these things are overdetermined,
so
but
far.
let me offer some speculation. First, as we said in the FOMC statement that you got at 2:00, the economy output is solid. CapEx and productivity are strong.
You know, this is exactly
labor
what we were talking
market's
about before this
solid,
meeting, and
steady.
now he's proving the charts
The
are
bond
correct.
market, the treasury market, it seems to be saying that as well. If I were to try to break down, disaggregate the treasury market signals, I wouldn't be able to do it perfectly. But the bond market's saying many of those same things. And that's why we're seeing a tightening both in nominals and in reals. Even while at some level we haven't done much in 42 days, the markets have done quite a bit.
You keep up these
Jones,
answers, man.
Financial
You are
Times.
going to be the best
You seem to have
CEO of
got
any
the
company
family
in the
fight you were
world.
after at this meeting. We saw three dissents. Could you characterize the arguments that those dissenters put forward, please, and tell us a little bit why you weren't persuaded by them at this stage? Thank you.
So I guess I shouldn't give you their best arguments. I'll give you some others. So you're right. I asked for a good family fight and I got one. That's the purpose. That's the design feature.
Good for you.
I come into this meeting, even this press conference, heartened by what I've experienced the last 2 days. Most of our discussion were on the big questions that matter to the conduct of monetary policy. We didn't sort of hide from them. We weren't scared of them. There was a lot more interaction between and among my colleagues. It was a real family fight. My view, which you've long heard,
It's a great way
is
to
that's a
describe
better way
it.
to get policy right. That's our North Star. So there was a lot of agreement that I heard that we have the powers, the tools, also the authority to deliver stable prices. No walking back from our responsibilities. There was a large majority support for the decision that we made in the room. But I also want to leave you, Claire, with one other impression. There was nothing inertial about that discussion. It was an active, robust discussion about what's in the full range of what we can do and might want to do in the period ahead. You characterized accurately, there was a disagreement about a decision today. I would say that doesn't sort of capture the full essence of the discussion.
No, because it's three out of the whole
The
book.
path to central bank heaven requires delivering on our remit. These days, that means delivering on price stability. I wouldn't measure that path in 42 days or any one particular meeting.
I like him so
And
far.
I came
He's
out of
not
that
saying
meeting
anything
even more
crazy.
confident that this is the right team to win the battle against high inflation.
How much do you think not going in July was down to the cool CPI print for June?
So in 2 words, not much. Not much. I'd like to believe that the committee shares my views, which is the historic problem with data dependence is the data and the dependence. We are not relying on any one individual piece of data as cover or as an excuse or as validation. What I care about and what I think the committee cares about is trends on the data. Sure, we got some encouraging inflation data. I think at the meeting 42 days ago, I said something like 63 months of inflation above target. I didn't say 64, though the final calculation might be a close one. So we'll be watching inflation data over the period ahead. But I also don't want you to leave the misimpression that we're sort of breathlessly waiting that. I've called for a task force to revisit both the private and public data we use to make our decision making. That task force is out doing their work. I'll be checking back in with them the next couple of weeks, but I wouldn't say we overly relied on any one piece of data, including that data, which surprised some a couple of weeks ago.
Hi, Chairman Warsh. Thanks. Neil Irwin with Axios. Thanks for taking our questions. So the Fed funds rate is now about 75 basis points below the 2-year yield. Suggests markets think you'll have to tighten eventually, about 100 basis points below most Taylor rule estimates. You're hitting your employment mandate, inflation stays high. Why should rates not be higher today?
There's a lot in there, Neil. So rates are higher today than they were 42 days ago.
They are. Absolutely. Pay attention, Mr.
Markets
Reporter.
have made decisions because we step back in part from trying to influence those. Market judgments have moved up on what nominal rates are across the Treasury curve. That doesn't mean we take them as by dictation, but we're observing them. So I think it's a mischaracterization to say that markets haven't reacted because we didn't move today. Markets are reacting in real time. In the period ahead, we've got important decisions to make about the policy rate. Markets in the intervening period, I think, have quite a bit of decisions to make. I'll see if I can put it this way. Monetary policy matters not just by what we say or even what we do. Monetary policy matters by how it affects the real economy. And these prices that we see in financial markets is one of the many ways in which it affects the real economy. We'll be continuing to watch that market information, see how it responds to incoming events, and that can help inform our decision making when we meet in 7 or 8 weeks.
How would you characterize in the family fight the last couple of days of you and the other 8 members who wanted to hold? Was that a strong conviction, or was that a hair trigger close call on holding versus tightening?
Well, I think the vote was 9-3. The broader discussion to my ear over the course of the last days showed a lot of agreement on the hard questions. 4 questions I raised at the outset about what's really happening in the economy with the shocks and absent the shocks. What are our tools and our capabilities? What's the effect on prices on output? I heard a lot of commonality on the questions. Were there different leans on the answers? You bet there was. So could people come to different conclusions? Absolutely. But my own judgment is this is a period of watchful thinking, not watchful waiting. And I think the score on that vote was unanimous.
Thank you, Colby Smith with the New York Times. You've mentioned that looking at the Fed's policy tools is one element of a 3-pronged strategy to address the inflation problem. So I'm curious how you view the effectiveness of those tools. If inflation is too high and not coming down, is the best remedy to raise interest rates?
So that was the discussion in the last 2 days. Is that the dominant remedy? If inflation continues to be elevated through the forecast period, interest rates could well be part of that solution. But I wouldn't say it's in isolation. I tried to describe in my remarks today a point that I made into the oversight committees a couple of weeks ago. I think there was a misimpression by some in financial markets, by some households and businesses, that central bankers like me, we set a 2% inflation target, but maybe we were more tolerable of a somewhat higher inflation target. In economics, we'd call that the revealed preference.
I was going to say
And
that's
so might it have been
absolutely
rational
untrue.
for people to think, well, their inflation target's somewhat higher. What I heard in the last 2 days, what I've heard in 8.5 weeks is no.
See?
We will deliver the 2% inflation target. That
Not
is the committee's definition of price stability.
Wow, is
So
he
one way,
good? Jesus
Absent
Christopher.
the tools that you reference to ensure that we
If
get
you could
there,
just get out of here
ensure
before
that
saying something stupid,
expectations
we're
are
going to be
centered
all
around
right.
the right number. And I think we made some progress on that. I am not suggesting we're done on that. It's worth reiterating. And ultimately, the business we're in, Colby, is performance. We are going to be judged by how we perform. And that's what we intend to do. The inflation target,
Everything's
making
gone
clear
green except for
expectations
Russ.
is one part of it.
Metals,
Making
everything
sure
that I
we
was watching has
demonstrate
gone
we're
green.
responsible
And
for it.
bonds,
We're
at
not
least, are
blaming as
working their way
another.
back up right
And
now.
our policy tools, like you referenced, is the third and equally consequential part.
How are you factoring the fact that a large portion of the inflation overshoot is being caused by supply shocks, as it's mentioned again in the statement? Does that blunt the effectiveness of rate hikes in your view?
First, on the premise of your question, it was almost as if you were listening to our discussion in the last day and a half. A lot of our focus was on trying to understand and identify underlying inflation dynamics amid shocks. We take these shocks seriously. There have been a series of them that have been hitting this economy. We're not looking through them and saying, oh, they don't matter. What we're trying to understand is to what extent are these shocks broadening in their effects, broadening in their impact on prices that are quite far removed from it. Our goal is to have growth that is broadening and inflation that is becoming more limited, more circumscribed. I'll be the first to admit the shocks make this job and this policy conjuncture a little tougher, but
Makes
that's
it
among
exciting,
the chief
buddy.
questions
Not
we've
tougher,
asked
more
ourselves.
exciting.
And around the room, people have different views on it. I tend to think in the coming months, we're going to refine that view and have a better judgment. And we're going to have market prices trying to help inform it too.
Please leave. Please go. Get out of here now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Edward Lawrence from Fox Business. I guess I want to drill down maybe a little bit. What specifically in your mind would be the argument then for a pause today?
So I wouldn't characterize what we did as anything like a pause. I would characterize what we did as a rigorous review of the economic situation.
Talk about crude oil.
I would characterize
ahead.
what we did
This is
as
your
a
moment.
review of the big hard questions, and I'd characterize it as a view of what our own homework is to try to resolve those questions in the period ahead.
He's
If you were
great.
to try to force a description that this was a pause, I would say financial market prices would take the other side of that. Financial market prices in this intermeeting period, they didn't pause, they reacted to the inflation data in one direction, strong economic growth in the other direction, and nominal and real rates went up. Did the Fed take an explicit change in its policy rate today? No.
Good man.
But I think that's the
Good
beginning
man.
of the story, not the end of the story.
And if I could, I did want to ask, not forward guidance, but looking forward. Traditionally, a Federal Reserve chairman uses the Jackson Hole Summit as a sort of a reset of monetary policy. Well, how do you look at the speech that you're going to make in August?
I look at it like a blank piece of paper right now. I have not begun consideration with the incredible team here what would go into that document. I think you characterized it correctly. Historically, at least from my first tour of duty at the Fed to more recent periods, it would be sort of a setting up speech more often than not of what was going to be happening in the fall. I haven't made any judgments on that, but those are judgments we'll have to come to. If I could, in the high mountain air in Jackson, Wyoming, I'd like to also frame the big questions. There is a tendency, especially with the proliferation of meetings and press conferences, to get caught up in the myopic. Did you do this by a quarter or do that? Ultimately, whether we deliver on price stability matters some, the decisions we make in 6 or 7 or 8 week periods. But they matter more. What are the big questions? What's really happening with productivity? What's really happening with demographics? What's really happening to the global economy amid the shocks? Haven't made a decision whether it's going to be a big picture speech or whether it's going to be a more traditional setup for all the action we're going to have between September and December. I will tell you one other thing that I am doing between now and Jackson Hole, so I'm checking with those task forces. My first principle of establishing a task force is find the best subject matter experts anywhere in the world and put them together, especially put them together with other people who might disagree with them. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing a check back in, giving them time to sort of think hard about their agenda, their debate, their schedule, and when they might be ready for prime time. I'll be doing a little bit of that checking, and that may or may not inform anything I have to say in Jackson.
Nick Timmeros of the Wall Street Journal. Chairman Warsh, I want to follow up on Colby's question about policy transmission. You've said there's no cruel choice between stable prices and full employment. Rates bring inflation down by cooling demand. It's generally thought that can show up in the labor market. If that's not the channel you're relying on, what is?
Yeah, so let me go back to first principles, Nick. I don't believe that either part of our mandate is generally at war with the other part. I do not believe that price stability and full employment is an either or proposition. There have been policymakers over the last several generations who have thought that there is a strict trade-off there. That isn't my judgment. In fact, my judgment
Very cool,
is
isn't it? Let's go back to
if
first
and
principles.
when we deliver on our remit, we're going to be satisfying both prongs. We're going to have price stability and full employment. And in fact, if you want to do the most harm to the labor markets, you would run a period of high inflation that's variable, such that employers, businesses, wouldn't really know what's going on. So I think the two parts of our mandate are equally important. We have no legislative orphans here. I've been talking mostly about price stability because we're doing pretty well collectively as a country, as policymakers on the full employment side. But we're doing considerably less well on prices. That's why we describe them as elevated, and that's what's taken most of our discussion.
Talk about crude.
In terms of transmission mechanisms of monetary policy, I think different tools work through different transmission mechanisms. The interest rates work through lending channels and credit channels, maybe confidence channels and foreign exchange. The balance sheet probably works through some other channels like signaling and portfolio balance. We're keeping full abreast of all these tools and making policy. But if the suggestion is somehow we're going to be fine-tuning aggregate demand so it catches supply, that's not my mental model. I don't think we're great in the fine-tuning business. We're trying to get supply and demand in broad order, but really what we're doing as we sit here today at this press conference is I think we've got a reasonable sense of what aggregate demand looks like in this economy. We're inferring aggregate supply. We're making a judgment about what productivity is. And in some sense, there's a race between supply and demand. And the surge in business capex in and around AI, it's making that calculation a little harder to judge. But in the period ahead, we're going to be trying to judge just that.
And if I could ask, where exactly was the disagreement today? Was it about the inflation forecast, or was it something more around the risks, the tactics?
Yeah, so I'm going to I'll let the dissenters speak for themselves. The way I heard it over the last 2 days was overwhelming agreement on objectives and authority and commitment. I didn't hear anybody walking away from it. The judgments as to how best to achieve the price stability, that was probably the question that we were trying to answer. What's the best move? What's the best strategy? What's the best way to achieve it? And a second question that was asked is, when do we need to make those harder calls? When do we need to make those decisions? And like I said to one of your colleagues, I was comforted that markets in the intermeeting period weren't reacting to us. They weren't reacting to dots or to speeches. They appeared more than ever to be reacting to real-time events. So they're gauging themselves how restrictive the Treasury curve should be. And that, I think, has been a useful development. We don't endorse any particular market move, but I'd also suggest we observe them with keen interest.
Any market in particular? You got to say it at least once during this conference.
Janelle Marte with Bloomberg. Following up on that, there was more uncertainty in the markets about what the Fed would do at this meeting. To some extent, you might think that's what you want to see. But my question is about, is there a point at which you would not want to surprise the markets if they were pricing in something with higher certainty that was opposite of what you were intending to do? What are the risks that you see associated
Why
with
would he
that?
do what the street
So
wants?
it's a good question.
He does what
Surprise
he's
is not the
supposed to do.
objective function. Surprise is not what we're solving for. We have a clear North Star. What we're solving for is how to make the best decisions. Almost everything else should be in service to that goal. By not spoon feeding markets, by not previewing our decisions, by not sort of giving nudges and leans, my colleagues and I found in the intermeeting period, what we're getting is the views from a very accomplished economist. That's the internals of financial markets. Instead of just repeating or echoing what we were saying back to us, they're giving us somewhat, not perfect, their own judgment. Surprises are not the objective, but at the same time, I would say we didn't come into this meeting feeling constrained by the full range of alternatives we had in front of us.
So some of your peers have continued to discuss how they think about policy decisions, and if you don't offer your
Hey, Lise,
reaction
just
function or
checking
your
on you.
way
How
of
you doing in
thinking
there?
about it, how concerned are you that you're ceding control of the narrative?
Okay.
So
need
we're not
anything?
very concerned. That's a short answer to the
All right,
question.
I'll check on you after the press conference.
When some
All right.
people that follow the Fed say, well, we don't want your forecast. We don't want your dot. We just want your reaction function. Part of me hears what we really want is your forecast. What we really want is your dot. In terms of reaction function, let me sort of disabuse people of a question that may or may not be real and be out there. Any central banker, especially a central banker where the labor markets are more or less at equilibrium. Any central banker, when he or she sees underlying inflation moving higher, he or she is more inclined to tighten policy. Again, when you've achieved the other side of your mandate and you see underlying inflation falling, he's more inclined to loosen policy. That's my reaction function, and I don't suspect it will
Once
cause
again,
people
Wash,
to not continue to cry
great
for more.
non-answer
The truth
answer.
is,
I love
for a
this guy
very
so
long time
far.
in a lot of countries, coming out of the 2008 crisis, we're in crisis mode, we were purposefully providing a lot of information, trying to provide a lot of assurance, trying to tell people exactly what we're going to do, offering forward guidance with clarity as if we're tying our own hands behind our back. Well, in crisis mode, that strikes me as a very prudent policy. But in more benign conditions, it strikes me as worth revisiting. But markets and market participants and reporters have learned to devour all that information. So I take seriously that the pullback of forward guidance requires some transition. Reform isn't easy, but our general judgment is going to help us make better decisions, and in so doing, satisfy our remit.
Come on, it's after 3. Please leave. Please leave. You get us in trouble at some point. You keep talking.
Thank you. When you talk about the 2% inflation target, what measure are you relying on?
So I'll give two answers. First, let me give the proper standard answer. The Federal Reserve every January outlines a statement of purposes and strategy. And in that strategy document, which I believe was dated January of this year, it describes a measure of PCE inflation as the objective function there. I have enough of my, so that's our number, we're sticking with it. Who knows, come after next January, what we might say about strategy. I suspect the task forces might have something to add. But I'll say this, some version of the Lucas critique, some version of Goodhart's law in economics should remind us that when we talk about
You're right, he does.
measures
Not him, the other guy.
of inflation or something else, and we describe those measures as being consistent with our objectives, we might make them such that they're not very good measures or very good objectives. Broadly, if you said to me standing in front of you, I abide fully by the strategy document, we're going to deliver 2% inflation and not a whisper more. But to achieve that, I'm looking at a broader set of inflation data than PCE. So without sort of fully revealing my cards, I'm trying to understand, like my colleagues, what's the underlying generalized change in prices that are happening in the economy. It is not a perfect science. I might have said 42 days ago, I've got a task force for that.
S&P
But
just
we have a
moved
data project that's trying to look
76
and see whether we can separate the noise from the signal.
74.60 in
And
about
so
a
if you would
minute.
hear a message from me, yes, I care
2
about
minutes.
what the PCE prints are. I care about what the contributions are from CPI and everything else. But my lens is broader than that, even though the remit is quite narrow.
When are you going to stop taking questions, sir?
Michael McKee from Bloomberg Radio and Television. I'm struggling a little bit with some of what you've said today, and maybe you can help clarify this. You've said over and over again that your job is to bring down prices, to get prices stable, to hit your target, and that you will hit your target. The market says you're not there yet because they've raised rates. But all you've talked about today is talking about it. And it's not like members of the committee weren't there before you talking about it. So I guess what the American people might be asking is, what are you waiting for?
Yeah. So, believe it or not, this press conference is not all I've done today. We have spent an inordinate amount of time in the last 2 days, 2 weeks, looking at our monetary policy strategy, evaluating our tools, thinking hard about the sources of data that we have at our disposal and we wish we had. We've also thought hard about the period ahead. What among these questions will be answered with more clarity, certainly not certainty? So the decision we've made today, the discussion we had in that room, was the farthest thing from inertia I can imagine. As a point estimate at this very moment, in a choice between two alternatives, you heard the results of it, but I would tell you that this discussion was far more robust, and our thinking about how best to achieve that target is advanced. And over the coming months, I expect it to be advanced much more significantly. If I were to steal a follow-up question, you won't be giving it up. If I were to steal a follow-up question, well, what's the world think about what you've done? I would again reiterate, what we do isn't just about what we say. It's not just about what we do. We're in the performance business. And so if I look at the Treasury curve, if I look at the dollar, if I look at a lot of things that are internals inside of financial markets, I think what they're broadly saying is that this committee does own it, has the credibility to deliver it, and they believe, like I do, that we will. But I don't want to leave you with a misimpression. We've got no magic wand. This isn't something that we're going to be able to carry out in days or weeks, but we're going to deliver on the responsibility that Congress gave us. And today's meeting and the preparation for today's meeting was an important step towards that destination.
I'd like to follow up on the task forces as well and ask, what vetting did you do of the people that you appointed to the task forces? In particular, given Mark Andreessen's substantial political spending, $25 million in just the past year to back candidates who oppose stricter AI regulation, how can the public be confident that a committee he co-chairs will provide an independent assessment of AI's economic effects rather
That's a
than
good question. I like
with the
that.
interests of the AI industry?
Let's think it outside the
So
box.
I selected 15 incredible subject matter experts to tackle 5 of the most important questions that if we get the answers right, we're going to do a far better job in delivering. And if we get the answers wrong, we have a problem. The comfort that I can give you and your listeners is we're the decision makers. The chairman of the board of the Federal Reserve and the members of the board and the FOMC, we will be the consumers of the outputs from 5 different committees.
He's the first guy I've
The
heard it call
judgments
the
we're
FOMC
making will
in
be
12
informed
years.
by, but not at all determined by these
Federal
outside
Open
groups.
Market Committee. I've always called it the
My theory of
FOMC.
the case in establishing the task forces were to pick people with extraordinary talent,
Bond's getting slammed.
depth of expertise, and a divergence of views inside every committee, so they too can have a family fight. This is not outsourcing to people that aren't known and haven't been vetted. This is seeing whether new ideas can catalyze a broader, better, more informed discussion inside the room. And I'm very confident that we're going to be able to do that. I am impressed by the credentials of these 15 people. And full disclosure, I've known almost all of them for a very long time. And I think they're going to give their best views on the subject. But ultimately, these are decisions we're going to make, and we're accountable to our oversight committees and to the remit Congress gave us to deliver.
Hi, Anna Sophia with Reuters. Nice to see you again. So I need a little help here too. You've said repeatedly you have no tolerance for inflation. And yet we are seeing above target inflation repeatedly for 5 years and through your term so far. And sure, you have no magic wand, but you have not taken action. You just gave us a little peek at your reaction function as well. You said that if underlying inflation is rising, that you would tend to think that you might need to tighten. And with the exception of the most recent inflation print, that is what we've been seeing. So could you explain what you mean by no tolerance for inflation and what you plan to do about it?
Sure. So, Anne, I hear from you what I hear more broadly from households and businesses: impatience. Deliver it already. This is not an excuse. This is a fact. This FOMC, this board has been in business for 8.5 weeks. The impatience that households and businesses feel have been going on for 63 months. We are on the job. We will deliver. We are focused like a laser on making sure we can do it. But the suggestion that we're going to be able to do it with our magic wands is one I want to disabuse you and everyone else of. But the discussion the last 2 days give me more confidence even than I had 8.5 weeks ago. This team that we have at the FOMC, the support that we have from board staff, and the new hard questions we're asking, we need to resolve those. And as we resolve those questions, get smarter on those, we're going to deliver on the remit. You don't have to take my word for it. If you look broadly at market prices, they are certainly not saying all clear, but they are working in concert to keep us on our toes. And they have tightened financial conditions in this intra-meeting period, and that has given us that has provided us some comfort that we've got the ability and capability to deliver.
And is your read or your, I guess, faith in markets' ability to sort of make a judgment and then you to take signal from that judgment, how does that affect you when you come up on the September meeting and markets are seeing a near 100% chance of a rate hike as they see now? How does that feed into your decision making and your thinking?
So we're not going to be constrained by market prices. We're not going to be constrained or take verbatim from what the market's doing. But I think it's useful, and to understand that markets can be a very good source of information, not a determinative source, not a perfect source. But if we're trying to land the plane and deliver 2% inflation, and we take a very useful source of information and we get it all fogged up by giving it our own forecasts, by providing rolling commentary, I can assure you that we're going to have less information, less ability to land the plane successfully and deliver price stability. We're just trying to make sure that that source of information is as direct and unfiltered as possible. It isn't to the exclusion of data sources and opinions and other surveys. But if you're hearing from me, we wanted to make sure we were getting a better source of information. I think in a relatively short time we are.
Hi, Chairman Warsh. Brian Chung with NBC News. So you said you'd be open to having press conferences when there's news to make. So today, no change to rates, no forward guidance. For the average household, I guess, what was the news today?
So apparently it was news that I had a press conference. Let me just see if I can offer some clarity on that. Between now and year end, my predecessors and the Federal Reserve committed to press conferences this year. I'm committing to press conferences this year. That might be people in this room and of no particular interest to your viewers and your readers back at home.
Good for you.
What I can offer as assurance is that the Fed's on the case. That
I'll take a break after the press conference and come say hello.
This board and this committee's ability to deliver than I did when I showed up here on the first day, and I showed up pretty confident. I've been heartened by the reception that I received. No doubt in some of your commentaries today, you'll talk about a divided Federal Reserve. But that's not the feeling I felt the last couple of days and the couple of days before it. What I felt was a group of professionals, all with different perspectives, different views, different judgments, but eager to roll up their sleeves and have a family fight, and eager to reform the way in which the Fed does policy, a keenness and open-mindedness and curiosity about that. So we have a far better chance to deliver on the remit that Congress gave us. And so I want to leave you with the optimism of a new central banker that we're committed as ever to deliver and to offer an assurance we will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job. Go home. No more questions. Well done, sir. That was fantastic. He didn't say anything at all. He just spoke, but he didn't say anything, which is perfect. You couldn't have asked for a better result than what we just seen. That was exactly what we needed. He didn't say much. Anytime he did say anything, it was about data related only. We're on it. We're talking about it. We're on it. We're talking about it. That was great. No, it was great. Well, that's what you want. And you must understand, from the Fed chairman, the last thing you want him to do is say anything of substance. The world will go crazy reacting to it. If he slipped out, looks a little overbought to me, we'll have a year and a half bear market. You know what I mean? You can't say anything when you're the Fed chairman. You have to be very careful what comes out. He was very careful. We want that economic word salad. Unlike politicians, which we get mad at them for that, you want the Fed chair to do exactly what he did and handle those reporters the way he handled them. Don't say anything. That's what I would, that's the way I would handle it. Don't say anything. Speak as much as you want, just don't say anything. I would hire him to write all my NFA rebuttals if I was still in the NFA. Please write those words. The words that mean nothing and say lots but say nothing. It's just great. So anyway, I got to give him a round of applause for not saying anything crazy. He didn't call the Russell overbought. He didn't do anything stupid. We've heard others in the past to make that move, say silly words like that, and then the Russell spent 2 years going down after that. So he did really well. He didn't say a word. He just spoke. It's great stuff. Why is NQ diving? Well, I have to be honest, the pullback started long before this press conference. This has been going on for a few, we've been coming down for a while now. And I did do an assessment last night showing that no matter what happens, downside is probably where we're going. Chart-wise, don't know what the Fed's going to say or do, but chart-wise, that's what happens next. And we're going in that direction, so I'm not surprised at all, MCM. It's what we expected. Gold's having a day today for sure. How Gold interpreted what he had to say as bullish, I don't really figure in that, but whatever. Markets are never wrong. They're always right. It's our job to try to be right alongside of them. Any thoughts on SpaceX now that it hit my target? I haven't worked it up, Nicholas. Maybe I'll take a look at it the next day or two. In other words, I had enough data to come up with this target, but now there's no more new data. So I don't, you know what I mean? I got to wait a little bit to see what I have to come up with next. Stops are in, emotions are out. Don't drink and drive, kids. I like that, friendly. Make sure you say that every day. Very cool, friendly. He just bought a. He just paid $40 billion for what? I think he just paid $40 billion for somebody's AI to integrate into his. I can't remember the name of the company though. Like this is just happening. This guy spends $40 billion. No one even notices it. $40 billion. People don't even notice. Well, in all honesty, Elon Musk called out Sam Altman as a fraud, which is why they broke apart to begin with. But that doesn't mean he wasn't a fraud. Now, it doesn't mean legally he didn't do things correctly, yes, but morally is probably what's the stuff that was getting Elon more than anything. He didn't want AI used for the stuff it's being used for now, and that's what made them end up at odds when it first got created. Who won't have the funds to pay the hyperscalers? Oh, yes. Elon will have the money. You think Elon is a fraud, huh? What is it with you, Aeon? I mean, don't you ever see anything for what it is? You're so mad at this world. You think everything's wrong. MCM goes that way a lot too. Why would you think this guy's a fraud? I mean, what more does a guy have to do out in front of us in the public? He takes SpaceX public. He makes it where unless it's 30% higher than where the IPO went out, he's not allowed to even touch his shares. He does stuff where he's not allowed to make a dime unless the company makes $18 billion. How do you call this guy a fraud? He bought Twitter because the world wouldn't allow the president of the United States, the free country, to speak freely on Twitter, so he bought that. He thought it was a good idea to show people that you could buy cheaper cars and use less electricity. What makes this guy a fraud? I mean, where did you get that from? I don't understand. Where does he turn into a fraud? It's just, you know what I mean? I get it when people are what they are, but why would you call someone who clearly isn't something like that? Oh, so that I see. You have a personal conflict with him because you don't recognize why he bought Twitter. You think he bought Twitter because he wanted to be proud of himself. Come on, weren't you paying attention when he bought Twitter? He bought Twitter because he couldn't sit back and watch the president of the free world not be able to speak freely. He thought that was insanity. So he bought that shit from him so the president could speak freely. What? I just don't get why you wouldn't like a guy like this. What more does a guy have to do on this planet to help the planet to not have 50% of the people hate him anyway? That's the way the world works, right? 50% hate you, 50% love you. But where on earth do you, who you don't know him personally, where do you get this fraud stuff from? It's only what we see, and he hasn't proven to be a fraud ever yet since he started doing anything. So where does that come from? I got to stick up for people who don't deserve to have rocks thrown at them for no reason. I'm sorry. I got to stick up for the guy. There's no reason why you should be talking bad about this guy. I've never seen anyone else on the planet do so much for the human race in my life. You can say what you want about a guy like that. What an uncle he's been to us, though. You know, Peter, I agree with you. Why would anybody point their finger at him, of all people? You know, here's a guy who basically risked everything he was worth and his entire reputation to step into a place where he can't stand, D.C., and try to fix a department of ours that was broken. Which they were then firebombing his stores, and he was becoming the worst guy, and he took that shot to help us. Where on earth does that make him a bad guy? I just don't get this. I mean, come on. Where does that make him bad? Now, AN, I'd stick up for you just as strongly if someone said something about you I didn't like. So it's not just him. I stick up for my friends or the people who I consider people who help us without me asking. So here's an interesting way that Elon helped me. My wife's car had 45,000 miles on it. It was a nice Chrysler 300, but the mileage is 45, 50,000. Let's get rid of that. Thank you for Dano's giving me the heads up. Elon Musk takes a car that was like 60,000, knocks the price down to 35,000, then says anybody who wants this car, I'll give it to you at 0.01% interest. Nothing. Have the car. Thank you, sir. So I traded in my wife's car. They gave me 25,000 for that. They put that on the price of the Tesla. I got basically a Tesla for free with no interest. I wasn't expected to be helped by this guy, but he showed up and he helped me. He don't even know me. So be careful who you like and dislike. Have good reasoning behind disliking someone if you're going to dislike them. No, Elon said to Altman, we cannot turn this into a profitable thing. We are not going to turn this AI into you pay us and you can have AI. We're going to make this where it just helps the world. And immediately Altman wanted to turn it into a profitable for-profit organization, and that's what split them up. Which one of them can do AI better, we don't know, but that wasn't really what split them up. At least, now, I don't know him personally, so I don't know if that's true, but it's the stuff I followed while they were having their arguments and they broke up. I don't know what the truth is. How could any of us? All right, let's take that statement and see just how true that is. Everything Elon does is for profit. So when he takes his satellites and puts them over the Ukraine, doesn't make a dime, spends $1 million a minute doing that. No one pays him back for it for a year and a half. He's doing that for profit, huh? When he takes a car, drops the price, sells it with 0 interest, he's doing that for profit, you think, huh? Not to help at all. There's no helping anybody in that at all. It's pure, I just want the money out of your pocket because I'm evil, Elon. Do you believe I'm even having this conversation, people? What makes you dislike him so much? Well, where are you from, Ann? Are you from the United States? I'm going to think no before you give me an answer. I vote no just because of the conversations we're having. Are you from the U.S. or from another country? Well, and that was their internal thing. One of them thought, let's never make this about profit. Let's help the world with it. The bad guy who you call Elon Musk. And the other guy who you're sticking up for said, no, let's stick it up everyone's asses and charge them a fortune for this. So, of course, Musk is the wrong guy for wanting to give it out for people. And you've got to take the side of the guy who wants you to pay, which makes you, if you are in this country, a Democrat. Because it's the most hypocritical thing on the damn planet, which makes you a Democrat if you're in this country. Only today, Democrats weren't like this 5 years ago. I actually was one. Not lately, though. Lately, they're a little bit scary. They believe in anything goes as long as we do it. And if you do it, even though we did it, you're going to jail. It's a little bit scary. Sort of like Ann thinking just how wrong Elon is for not wanting to make profit on this open AI. And how dare him be mad at Altman for charging people. I get it, but that's the wrong side of the argument. They're supposed to be on the side of the argument that Elon was trying to give it away for free. Great stuff. How could you be on the wrong side of this argument? Oh, you're from Canada. I knew you weren't from this country. Because most people from this country have... If you've never left this country, you've got the wrong opinion of the United States. If you've left this country, spent any time in another country and came back, you develop the right opinion of the United States. If you're from another country, you don't know jack shit about our country. You always got the wrong opinion. We are the best place to be on this planet. If you could take binoculars and if you could stare at every country in the world, you go by these countries and you see people working really hard, gray eyes, not doing anything fun. You get to the United States, you know what you see? A party, 5 bands playing, girls in bikinis, stacks of beers, fireworks going off. That's the United States. But you guys who don't live here, you just don't get it. You just don't get it. Peter, I didn't expect we could change his opinion. You know, there's a certain type that green is blue because they call it blue, and that's that. They don't give a shit what color you call it. Even though it's green, they call it blue. And that's the way it works, and that's that. You know what I'm saying? There are people that are just that way. Some people you just can't get to. You won't get to him. Here's an example. And again, I vote for any side, Republican, Democratic, Independent. I don't care. If I think you could do a good job, I don't have a team, right? I don't care really about any side. I have a friend of mine, and we were hanging out the other night, and he said something about the foods here, and that when he travels, I said, don't even answer, don't finish the statement. I'll finish it for you. When you travel, the food is so much better, right? It tastes fresher, cleaner, less chemicals in it. Even if you buy potato chips, they taste better than the ones here, right? He said, yes. I said, I knew you were going to say that, because everywhere I go, hey, you're talking about my Janet Yellen here. That's Auntie J, man. We're talking about the lady who we invite to our pool parties in a bikini. You go high friendly. Anyway, so sorry, I've got 2 chat rooms here that we're working with. We have, oh, I'm sorry. What was my train of thought on that? What was I just telling you guys about? My apologies. Well, of course, that got your attention. That got mine, too. Who wouldn't want to see Janet Yellen in a bikini? Of course, after that, I'll need 2 hot pokers so that I can get rid of my eyes. But, you know, I'll get the view first. Well, he actually, and he did charge the United States for that stuff after a while. But he did do it for free. After a while, he said, listen, I can't spend $1 million a minute. Somebody's got to help me with this. So government started kicking in. But he did do it for free for a while. Food quality. Thank you, MCM. So I'm hanging out with my friend, and we both come to the same conclusion. Yes, food seems to taste better in other countries. Less preservatives, less fructose corn syrup, which is all over everything in this country. So my son noticed that now we buy potato chips that remind us of the potato chips in, I don't know if it was Amsterdam, maybe Australia, but one of the two. Because it's the only brand that we can find here in the US that actually tastes a little bit more. So anyway, I say to him, you know, here's an interesting thing. This Kennedy guy that's trying to make some changes about the way food is processed and what we do. I said, we don't know if he'll ever be right, wrong, or indifferent, and it's not even about Kennedy at this moment in time. Here's the one thing Kennedy did. He got on a platform and started yelling, something's wrong. We're having children that have autism, 1 in every 10. This is impossible. Maybe it's in the food. Now, before Kennedy, most guys in that spot, because big food gave them so much money, they just kind of shut up. You know what I mean? They didn't really say anything. Kennedy's actually standing up for what may or may not be some changes that may or may not work. But here's what I said to my friend. But here's the great thing about what Kennedy's doing. Like him, dislike him, none of that matters. He finally got on that podium and started screaming, something's wrong, and it's in our food. The guy who takes over after Kennedy can now start from that podium already screaming day one, something's wrong with our food, and maybe make some changes. And the moment I mentioned Kennedy, he lost his effing mind. He heard none of the conversation. He couldn't even agree that Kennedy is just opening up a platform so the guy after him can actually get something done. He just lost his mind. And I went, wow, are you guys that broken? I mean, is it to the point that you're that broken that you take a side and couldn't even possibly see anything good at all? And the same conversation comes up. I don't know how this came up because I don't really talk about politics with my friends ever. I try to stay away from that completely. He started talking about, and this Trump is making all kinds of money while he's in office. He's trading. And I said, hold on a moment. The money Trump's making in office, he's got a trading company. It's out in the public eye. It wins, it loses, it trades. It's not taking government contracts and running behind our backs. He's buying and selling all day. He's day trading, whatever the system does. I said, and that maybe does make him crooked. But there's no difference between the crooked on the right or the crooked on the left, because when Biden was in, he was stealing all kinds of money that was sent to him from China and the Ukraine. So what's the difference between what Trump's doing and what Biden might have done? They're all crooks. And you know what he says to me? How dare you compare Trump stealing money out of the markets with the Biden family? They don't compare. What they did is acceptable compared to what Trump's doing. And I went, oh, are people this crazy? I don't even know if I'm a fan of his, but are people this crazy? Could you be this crazy? I don't get it. I just don't get it. We live in a crazy world.
Got home, took in the garbage pails, took in some of the neighbor pails.
Oh, cool. How's your mom?
Good. She just was walking. I saw her outside, and she walked inside and to the guest room.
So we have a whole bunch of people in here and a whole bunch of people in the chat room. We're having great conversations, by the way. Want to give me 5 minutes?
Sure.
I'm just check on mom. I told her I'd step out, but I didn't. Well, at least, listen, Trump's stealing. He does it before our eyes. Right? He's got trading companies that do what they do, but it's out in the public. You know, when you're having the Ukraine and China send money to your brother and your cousins and stuff like that under the table, they're both the same, right? Come on. He wouldn't even agree that they're both the same. It must have been Amsterdam stops her, and you might be right. Mikey, where were the best potato chips? Amsterdam or in the Netherlands or in UK?
Ooh,
Excuse
man.
me. Netherlands, you didn't come to the UK. So is it Netherlands or Australia? Do you remember?
I think I gotta go Australia.
Okay, because
But
that's
there
what I
was a
said to my
flavor
thought
of
was
the Amsterdam.
Australia.
The Amsterdam onion ring chip things, though, those were like some of the best chips I've ever had. So Amsterdam, those specific chips, but otherwise, I think the food better in Australia.
I was explaining to them that since we've come back, we keep trying to find potato chips that now
Taste somewhat similar.
Yeah. So we were talking about the foods.
Smith's Kroger brand chips, like wavy chips, we thought tasted pretty similar to Amsterdam chips.
Actually, what I was mentioning to them, without mentioning names, is what happened the other night when I mentioned how Kennedy maybe can set up at least a platform for the next guy to fix things. When we were in front of
Oh, so
how crazy
I was
did
thinking
he
about
get?
that. There are some people that like you can talk politics and they'll get mad or into it, whatever. Then there are some people that like, you know, when someone gets drunk, their face contorts. They do the same thing. Their face is like contort with
Did you
politics.
see
to,
how
like,
he just twisted?
Yeah,
and I
so
went,
I was like, I'm gonna walk away. I don't
sticky
want to deal with this.
subject. No, I changed it right away.
Yeah.
I was just telling him. I was telling him about it. How I was saying, you know, like Kennedy, dislike him, whether he gets it right or wrong. This has nothing to do with him. He'll be gone in a couple of years. But the next guy now has a platform to start with. Boy, did he lose his mind when I said that. Just because I threw the word Kennedy out there. Oh my God, what is wrong with people?
Yeah, that's pretty. That's pretty funny, Mega. I can't even lie. That's definitely some of it. But no, like, just truly, you could So what I kind of described it as, like, the food wise, I thought that food here, I think, has a like tastier taste, but food outside the country has a fresher taste, which is like, which is like, yeah, I thought so too. Like, at least like the ingredients and stuff we tried. A lot of what we had was Italian food, but even some of the fast food, which I wanted to try in other countries to see if it would be different, and it was. So that was cool. Yeah. But it's hard because those are always the best foods. Yeah, I mean, dude, crazy. Again, Gold Coast, Australia. I can't speak for the rest. I'm not sure if it'd be completely different, a little different, but hey, super. Of course, Oscar, when he comes back in, will answer your question, but it seems like once cryptos pick back up, you'd have to think that will as well, since crypto, Solana, Ethereum, excuse me, Bitcoin, Solana, Ethereum tend to be like some of like the biggest and most known cryptos or most used cryptos. So you have to think as long as they all pick up, and Bitcoin especially, it will too. But of course, Oscar will answer that for sure. Yeah, so for me, I'm like very picky when it comes to certain foods and like meats, especially like chicken and pork are basically like the only kind of meats I really like. So I don't like eat burgers or anything like that. A lot of times I won't even get chicken sandwiches. So I usually don't even get meat at fast food places. And honestly, I think that's probably for the better. Depending on the place you go, of course, not all. What are these cheerleaders? Oh yeah, I guess so. But yeah, so they had the Fed meeting. I wasn't even here for it. How did Warsh do in his first like true meeting? Oh really? Not good. Yeah, I heard you guys. Damn. Yeah, I was looking at YM. I was like, oh my god, that's absolutely down over 1,000. Got it. Was he a like talk too much kind of guy? Like, was he answering too many questions, giving out too much info kind of guy, or was he more like Powell that kind of stayed reserved? Oh, good. That's nice to hear. Cause yeah, I'm pretty sure we've seen in the past where like somebody can answer a question or they ask a question and the way they get answered can start to make the markets move. So definitely don't want someone to talk too much. I hear you, Sample. It's hard to not think about it each day. I just have to put it out of my head. I'm like, nope, it's not until November. Just gotta forget about it until then. Which, of course, if you're, on social media at all, it's impossible because you'll see it between either an update or news or rumors or memes or something. Which will definitely happen when it actually drops. If you don't finish the story fast, you better stay off social media. Hello. No problem. Yeah, damn, YM does keep moving on. But yeah, before, if you guys didn't see, we were just talking about Take-Two Interactive Rockstar GTA game. Hello. Mm-hmm. 2.6 right now. Really? Well, also, today I notice on Fed days that tends to happen a lot too. True. True, yeah. No, I definitely have seen some, but as I'm looking through. Ah, good luck. Alright, sounds good. Bye. Wednesday. But you know what? Now I'm curious myself. When that game's supposed to be. Because we were talking about it before. Yep, August 6th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time in Ohio. Very nice.
Prescriptions have been reordered.
Very nice.
So, here's the crazy thing. They call up and say, when you're running out of pills, you got to call us because it takes about 3 days for us to renew our pills for them. They'll only give us 7 days at a time. So if you get the pills and then you got Monday, Tuesday, you have to call already on Wednesday and order more pills, which takes 3 more days, which she's down to 1 pill every time we got to order more. And I'm like, this is bullshit. She's down to 1 pill before you guys order more for her. That's not going to happen. I want you to give me 2 weeks worth. So we'll see what happens.
Yep, hopefully it works.
So then there's a bone stimulator brace that Mom still hasn't gotten. So I called the doctor today to ask why. He said, your insurance company is denying it. I said, why? They can't deny it. She just had back surgery. It's a back brace. So in any event, today I got to call them. If they do deny it, it's a $4,000 brace. Yeah, but I got to get it anyway.
Of course.
Look, remember yesterday in my video, I said no matter what happens tomorrow with the Fed, we're going down. Look where the markets are.
Yeah, I was asking everybody how Lars did. And I was asking them how was he when it came to questions? Was he answering too many questions, saying too much, didn't really talk?
He was like, when you ask a question and you get an answer and the answer is full of information, but it means nothing. He was great. He was great like that. he just kept answering everyone's questions, but he never said a word that would mean anything different than how he started the conference. He was right on the
That's
money.
good.
Yeah, it was great. So what's Sample saying about GTA?
Back to... Oops. Oh, okay. No, I thought it was an update.
And today was a full moon, right? Last night was a full moon. Look at the action in the markets today. It always creates insane action. Well, stops are in. I don't come up with analysis like that. I don't do any thinking. I have to let the charts tell me if we're going to go up next week. God forbid I answered that question. You don't want me to ever come up with an answer without a chart.
You saw what Mega said.
200 cash, huh? I like it. This is called a bone stimulator brace. $3,500 to $5,800, somewhere in the middle. So it's funny because she had 4 screws, a metal plate, and bone fusion in the bottom of her spine, and the insurance company's like, no, we don't cover braces for stuff like that. Why would she need a brace? Come on, can't you get 2 popsicle sticks and some tape?
Timu.
look at these new lows, huh? Yeah, could you imagine that they're trying to claim the belt's not, that the brace isn't covered? I said, Doc, we're going to need this brace one way or another today, man, whether they cover it or not. And then he gave me the SKU for it, and I looked it up and went, oh shit, we're talking like $4 to $5 grand for this. No, I have to say, MCM, if this is the analysis I put forth last night in the video by doing just pure analysis, and then it's happening today, it's got to be a real move, right? Let's go take a look at the damage done so far. All right, let's go take a look and see. Let's go to the daily. Okay, Mikey.
4 minutes till the close.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So, look at what ES did. Now remember, this oh boy statement was here since this day. Right? I was like, oh boy, since that day. And the oh boy's getting worse. And of course, I put these in the videos every night. NASDAQ probably looks worse. Look at the NASDAQ. That's no better. And then if we roll out to that weekly NASDAQ, that's going to look pretty ugly too, kids. Look at that. You're right. The day is not over. And anything can happen on a day like this. You know that, right? I mean, anything. What else is going on out there? Crude got away from that barrier again, didn't it? 5. Oh, yeah. Right back up at that magic spot. Now we're back to bad juju. That's not a good thing to see right there. Why? Because the line, the average has been the line in the sand. Over it, you go higher. Under it, you go lower. And we just got over it. That's not going to help our stock markets. The 200, I think NASDAQ may be there already. Let's go find out. Let's light it up. Almost. NASDAQ's almost there. Why am I not typing in this room? You know, MCM, luckily I don't have to go through any of those thoughts at all. I'm going to run Omni, and Omni's going to tell me if I'm a buyer or a seller. I don't play that what if, maybe we should. Don't you think they might do this? The street might do that. Wouldn't this be a good time for a turnaround? I don't play that game at all. I don't know that much. I'm not that smart. But I'm smart enough to read a chart. And I'm smart enough to know that I'm not smart enough to know. But the chart, much smarter than we are. Now, there's a lot of people out there that literally think because they think it, it's right. And that's that. Because who they are, that's who they were born as. I'm not one of those guys. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm right. I hope I get it right. Yeah, it's I don't know nothing. I have to say that every day because I'm so full of knowledge after 45 years, I have to shelve it every time I look at a chart. I can't know stuff. It's really hard. Now, you do get to see the other side of me. I have an opinion on an omni-neutral day like yesterday. Sell the S&P at 74.94 to 99. Look at the monster trade that was. This was the Oscarism trade when I had a neutral in my Omni. Here, look. Sell it at 74 up to 74.99. The high was 75.01. Now, let's see just how far down we expected it to go. Selling at 74.94 to 99, but it was a Fed day, so we couldn't take the trade, right? That's E-mini S&P. Sell it 74.94, 74.99 with the stop above 75.49. Now, how low do we expect it to go? All the profit objectives are written down. I have 73.60 to 65 expected soon, written right here. Look, expected very soon. Look at the arrows pointing at it and the stars around it. Star, arrows. Expected very soon, 73.65 to 60 in ES. We're at 73.50 right now. How sick is that for analysis, kids? You can't do better than that. No one can do better homework than that, right? You can't do better. We called the exact high to get in, and we talked about very soon we're going to see that number down there with all the arrows, and we've seen it already. You can't do better than that, kids, which is why I don't think I just use charts. They told me this. Me, I wouldn't know what to think. Microsoft is up 10, huh? Well, the way the stock market's going, you better sell that rally. So, let's see what else. Copper is behaving, which is good. Bonds are not behaving, which is really bad. Really bad. Bonds are down to handle 13. Interest rates just went up another 1/8 of a point. Interest rates rose today. This is not good for any companies on the planet. Look, interest rates right here. Look at how bad that is. That's got to be 1/8 of a point right there. From here to here, it's got to be 1/8 of a point up in interest rates. This has to wreak havoc on the stock market because crude is doing this. Interest rates are doing the opposite, and our stock market is correcting. Now, Omniacs, if you've been watching my videos for the last 10 days, this is all I have been talking about. It's exactly what we're seeing now. Just about as bullish as I was on the way up, you know what I mean? I start getting bearish when it's time to get bearish. At least we know I don't get stuck on an opinion. I'll never be a guy. No one will ever be able to call me a perma anything. I'm not sure, Meg. I got to do my homework and see if I have to erase that off my board. But it's dropping a little bit. No, it's a correction in a bull market. I mean, this is nothing more than a correction in a bull market. Remember, let's go out to the weekly. I keep showing this to you. Even with today's move, no real damage has been done. This is all that's happened since the all-time high. So, yes, it's only a summer pullback. Now, we've been talking about this being healthy and expected, and it would be nice to finally see, and now we're finally getting it. It's just a pullback. Don't get caught up in the emotions of a down market when we've been in a long-term bull. Having a little bit of a correction, don't let that scare you. Middle of the year, the middle of the summer, don't let it scare you. Now, if you're long, it's scary. I get that. But if you're a day trader like me, it doesn't really matter where we go as long as we call it right. Well, Tom says, dang, sell in May might have finally surprise comeback. Sell in May and walk away. You know what, Tom, being that you said that, let's go look. On chart 8, let's go pull up ES because that would be the one. Sell in May and walk away. Let's just see how far down we've gone. This is your E-mini S&P, and May is here. Now, if you sold it in the beginning of May, let's say you even waited a day and you sold it here, you're almost back to that spot right now, except for you would have been in a lot of pain for a while. But yeah, Tom, you're almost there. Sick markets. That's just crazy. This back here puts us in May. So you just jet across and we're about that far from being break even if you sold it in May. And then gold went a little crazy too, huh? We'll use August for now. Really, gold just ranged around inside. It didn't do anything. It just went up a little, went down a little, didn't really do anything. Rates are up. So rates are up, right? We know that rates just went up because bonds got hammered. Banks sold bonds. And this is a game that they have been playing. They started this game on Powell when Powell had a moment to do a 0.5 point rate decrease and knock these idiots out of bonds. But instead, Powell got all wussy and he got all political and he let the banks off the hooks. And now every time we have a Fed meeting, the banks just sell the crap out of the bonds. And here's what happens. If the Fed lowers rates, the banks get to borrow at the lower rate the Fed just set, but they drive the bonds down so that when they sell us the mortgages, they're still selling them to us at 6%, 7%, 8%. It's what they do. It's a game they play. Now, this time, the Fed didn't lower rates, so they decided to just raise the rate anyway. If the Fed's not going to give us money cheaper, we'll still raise the rate that we're going to sell it out to the public at. So it's been a game that bond traders have been doing for the last 1.5 to 2 years. They had Powell on the run. They beat him, and they kept beating him. Wash inherited this. He can't do the big rate move now because we've already moved rates. He's got to somehow figure out how to get out of this quagmire. Sure, I'll look at the YM for you down under. So anyway, they're game stopping the Fed right now, and it's working. It's ugly. This should not be allowed. This is what I'm talking about. The Fed should come in and do something about this because the banks have them beat. No matter what the Fed tries to do to alleviate inflation, banks come in and sell the bonds on them and raise rates. That's a big problem. It's got the Fed on the run. It's the first time I've ever seen this in my career. Usually the Fed is stronger than the banks, but the banks have the Fed on the run because of the inflation moment we're having, and crude gives the banks a moment to just beat up on the Fed, and they're doing it. YM is down 1,236 at the moment. 1,236. You can't fire Trump because by accident Biden pardoned him too with his auto pen. Oh, I pardoned Trump by accident. Didn't know what I was signing. Well, the correction has begun. Rates went even higher today. Crude is up 500. We got a correction coming, kids. I'll figure out where it'll go down to, though. I'll work on that. I can't guess MCM. I don't do that. I have to use the charts. I don't even do educated guesses. I got to use the charts. So I can't tell you if we're going to go down to 15 or 20% until I do my homework. I did pick up on that we were going down. Now we'll see how far. Now that it's proven itself, I'll see what this is projecting out to. So if you guys just want to go back about 4 weeks, remember what I told you leading up to SpaceX, that this is just like Bitcoin. It's just too big, too much of a frenzy. There's too much money in it. It's taken all the money like a vacuum. And right after SpaceX goes public, that will be the high for a while. It's exactly what happened to Bitcoin when it finally became tradable in Chicago. And I compared the two things. It's basically what happened here. Ever since SpaceX went public, we basically spent all the money that we were going to spend. New lows in bonds. Interest rates move even higher. Down 1,300 the YM now. Dear Lord. Nice smackdown. That, I'll agree with you on that, AN. That did happen. Elon sucked all the money in the air out of the markets. SpaceX did it. All the banks making his IPO did it. But yes, that certainly was one of the big things. Do I think it'll bounce off 107 again? You know, Larry, I got to wait for a little more data to come in on SpaceX. It's too small of a chart right now. In other words, I was able to come up with data to create the first call. But there's really not a lot of data since then for me to come up with the next one. And I certainly don't want to make something up. But I will be able to do analysis on what's there, and I'll tell you what I see. I have to be honest, just off the top of my head, this thing's going to 88 without doing analysis, just looking at the chart. Was that 88? Yeah. 78 to 88, somewhere in that $10 area, without doing analysis. I'll do the analysis and tell you what I find. But a lot of analysis I can literally do in my head without drawing anything. So I can kind of see what I'm going to end up showing you guys later. The Tesla 5-year low, well, it's over to the left over here. It's one of the things I pointed out in my video last week. Look over here. We're gonna take out the work underneath this area in Tesla. So we took it out, right? We took out the work under here. But now if you look back further, you got down here. You got to take the work out down to here possibly. I mean, that's a lot of movement. We shall see. I told you sell that rally MCN. How could that make sense? Look, the markets are crashing. That was a news-driven event, right? I mean, it only makes sense if you're a stock trader to sell that. Well, no, I don't think it's that, Rob. It's that the price of crude went back up and T-bonds went down, raising rates. And the stock market is made up of companies that borrow money based upon all of these factors, where crude is now, how much the interest rate is, how much they're going to owe when they borrow the money at the end of 3 months. And because two of those major factors have just gotten more expensive, stocks have to come down a little bit. So it actually is part of the economy. Now, you have to realize one of the things happening in stores is they're pulling the same thing now that they did for COVID. The price of this paper at my store is more because of crude. You know what? You had nothing to do with crude because your shit came from 3 blocks down the street, like where you always get it from your dispensary or whatever you call it, right? From your supply house. So why is suddenly the price of your product going higher? Everyone is doing it. Services are charging more because of crude. Well, how can it cost you more to walk in my house and fix something because of crude? Are you kidding me? But everything's being charged more. They're using the excuse like they did for COVID. You remember 3 years after COVID, they were still making stupid excuses why their prices were high or why they don't answer the phone in person anymore because of something that's already gone. Now, they're using crude in areas where crude has almost nothing to do with their product at all, but they're using it anyway. A service and crude, the two things really aren't all that tied together. But they're charging more for services because they have an excuse. So inflation is everywhere because every company and every store has an excuse to raise prices. They blame it on crude. That's the Straits of Hormuz. That's why I can't get the dirt out of my backyard. It costs more to sell it to you now because as I dig through the dirt in my backyard, I got to pack it up and send it through the Straits of Hormuz to get back to my neighborhood so I can sell it to you. You know what I'm saying? It's such bullshit. But people are using it. Yeah, I know, I understand a lot of it's real, but the companies that really have nothing to do with whether or not their product should go up or down based on crude are using crude for an excuse to make it more expensive in their stores. That's actually happening because they can. I mean, and when you own a store or a product, why wouldn't you? And we don't argue with the U.S. government. Everything they say is upright. It's truthful, and it's factual. That's it. We don't argue with our government. Ask anyone in this country. We just agree. They don't lie. They don't cheat. They're always honest with us, so we just believe them. Tucker, you ever go to a gas station when prices of crude go up that same day as you're saying? They find their ladders and change the prices. And then when crude goes down for a week and a half, they can't find the ladder. I agree with you. I see it all the time. How could the price of crude at their gas station be worth more today if they've already purchased it and it's in the ground, right? So it's because they can. It's an excuse. They're going to use it if they can. Who wouldn't? I mean, there are people that make stuff at home and sell it to people locally at a stand. They don't even ship it, and they're charging more because of the price of crude. Everyone's doing it. Do you guys remember just a few years ago we didn't even need the Middle East? They were going broke because we didn't need them. What made that change? How did the world shift so dramatically? Well, really, kind of what happened was the Biden administration went on a moratorium of no more shale, no more crude. We're peeling back permits. You can't get permits. And they sort of shut down our crude industry. So now we're building it back up, but it does, it takes a little time to build back up. You think Trump's a drama queen? Woohoo! I think you'd find drama and Trump's name in the dictionary synonymous. He is full of drama. It's exciting stuff. It makes the markets go crazy. And again, like him, hate him, that doesn't matter. We trade markets. All I care about are markets. Well, Elon was trying to get us away from oil, but of course, Elon's a monster who is nothing more than a child rapist, and he deserves to be strung up by his ears and his skin ripped off because he does stuff for people. Is kind of the attitude I get. Poor Elon Musk. No, I do. I was giving you the opinion of others about him for some strange reason. I think he's fantastic. All right, so no one is ever going to get everything that they do right, but he does really big stuff to advance mankind in many ways. Of course, you're not going to get it all right, but boy, is this guy helpful to mankind. I can't imagine anyone that dislikes him. If you dislike him, you got a serious personality issue going on with someone who you never met. It's all right. So we have people that are credited for inventing things that didn't even invent them, that stole them from the patent office. And we still praise those people today. If you dig deep enough and you look at the telephone and some other devices that we all use today, the guy who invented that shit didn't get his credit. It was stolen from him. Elon doesn't steal. He comes up with this stuff himself. I mean, that's incredible. I think the telephone and electricity, the two of them were stolen from other people. And the people who came up with them get all the credit in the world and not the people who came up with it. Elon Musk comes up with shit himself. It's insanity. It's just great. Now, there are other people that go, it's not Elon, it's his engineers that do all of this. And I go, oh, I see. So an engineer comes up with the great idea, gives it to Elon and goes, now you go out and you become a trillionaire while I go home to my 2-bedroom house where I can barely afford my mortgage because I came up with that idea. This is what people believe. They literally preach this shit when they type about him. As engineers get told what he comes up with and then says, here's my idea. I want to make this, but I want to make it 3D and it's going to be round and it's going to have 4 legs on it. This is where we're going, guys. Show me how we're going to get it done. Okay, but first you got to come up with the idea. Then the engineers help you out. If it were their ideas, they wouldn't give them to Musk and then not make any money. So it's definitely his ideas. The people who say they're not his ideas, it's his engineers and he just takes the credit. Oh, really? So he's going to become a trillionaire and I am some J.O. that's going to sit at my stupid asshole desk and keep programming even though this is all my stuff. I don't think that's how the world works. Especially with today's internet. Hey, Oscar, I thank you so much for the years of work and helping all of us. I have a question. I trade with seasonals. Are you looking for patterns in the seasonals and applying them to your charts? So, yes, in a way. Seasonals are sectors to me where you go play at certain times. If you want to play coffee, sugar, cocoa, cotton, you don't play those in the summer. You play them in the winter where it's summer and they're growing places and winter in ours. If you're going to trade the grains, you got to wait for the cyclical seasonals in the spring into the summer. You don't trade grains in the winter. It doesn't make any sense unless you go after winter wheat. So there are seasonals that I kind of look at more as sectors than I do individual markets. So I'm not looking for a seasonal move in soybeans each year. I'm looking for the sector itself, whether or not we should have a bullish or bearish year. So I don't actually try to spot seasonals and say, now this is what's going to happen next. But by accident, because I spot patterns, I'm probably spotting that seasonal and calling it a pattern to myself. If I do spot one Turkish, you know what I mean? Well, for volatility, Trump has been great for the markets. For traders, I don't know if he's been good for the market. It's been tough. He's been good for volatility, though. If you are long options, he's been good for you. If you're short options, it's been a nightmare. All right. I should probably take my little lunch break here because I got to come back and come up with trades in a half an hour. That doesn't leave me with a lot of time. Of course, Tucker. All right, so of course you know me. I'm going to eat something and be back at it because now we got to figure out what the hell comes next. Silver down, gold up. Gold's basically unchanged, even though it's had a roller coaster in each direction. It's settled flat at the end of the day. And a lot of other stuff has had some big moves. Probably Tesla from 100 years ago started Tesla. And then Elon just ran with the idea. Of course, Turk. Of course. My pleasure. Yeah, man, we just made new lows again everywhere, across the board. S&P, new low. NASDAQ was there a moment ago. Russ just hit one. YM's been making new lows since the market opened this morning. Bonds are at the lows, which is not good. Same thing with 10-year notes. We got a lot of crazy stuff coming at us tonight. I would think Nikolai Tesla started Tesla, and we just ran with the idea. All right, so get this. When was the first electric car? Don't you dare look it up. Does anybody know when was the first electric car? Can anybody tell me? Come on, be quick. No, you guys don't know. Very good. Right around the 1920s, we had electric cars. There were cabs in Manhattan. The problem with the cabs is that the battery would run out and charging wasn't the way it is today. The cab would get stuck somewhere, sometimes with the passenger in it, and it failed. But we went electric in the early 1900s, the early 20th century. Did you know that? Now look it up and see if I'm right or wrong. Did we have electric cars in the early 1900s, the early 20th century? Answer is yes. You know what? Let's do that together. I know my shit. I never speak unless it's factual. I never, ever try to talk bullshit. If it's not factual, I won't speak it. Yes, New York City had thousands of electric cars and a major fleet of electric taxi cabs in the early 1900s. At the turn of the 20th century, electric vehicles were clean, quiet, and blah, blah, blah. Told you. I know my shit, people. Hold on a moment. Cars weren't invented until we invented them here in the United States. Where are they getting this information from? Nobody had a car until we invented them. How could people have invented electric cars before we invented our first gas car? Co-pilot's got to be wrong. That doesn't make sense. The U.S. invented cars. There were no cars before us. We haven't been around that long. Cars. So, AN, you're saying that Google started Tesla? I don't know anything about that. It's the first I've ever heard of it. Does anyone else know if that's true or not? All right, let's find out. Let's ask that next question. And who started Tesla? I don't know if this is true, though. It's coming off the internet. This information I don't know, so I have to look it up. I'd rather have it out of my head, but I don't have an answer for this. Who started? Okay. You are absolutely incorrect. That's not who started it. Where'd you get that information from? Now, I've never heard that from any other human but you, so I was suspect to begin with. And then looking at this overview, the answer is no. Nikola Tesla did electricity. He just didn't get any credit for it. Not until later on in life. The answer is no. Elon Musk and 2 other people created Tesla, not Google. At least according to AI, I don't know. I don't have that information. I've never heard that from anybody but you, AN, and I promise when I speak to a lot of people on this planet, when I hear something that's fresh and new about something that everyone else knows about, I always think it's suspect. How come I've never heard this from anybody else? How come Google has never, ever taken credit for starting Tesla? I think you got crazy information. Benjamin Franklin, yes, but Nikola Tesla was before him. Wasn't he? Wasn't he before Ben? If I remember right. Was he before him? I think he was. Gotcha. So he took it from Ben, huh? I remember, let's see, Nikola Tesla. What the hell was he? He did like the orb or something. It was like a brain. Let me see if I could see what it shows. He's the greatest geek who ever lived, huh? Let's go look at his museum. Plan your visit. No, I just want to see what you got there. What do we got? Come on, show some stuff. Well, where's the damn museum? I don't want to register. Get into here. I'm not registering. Live with Oscar. Hello. Sure. Let me tell Mikey about you. All right, bye. Gardner is here. Tesla held a total of 112 registered U.S. patents, While the total of Tesla's patents in other countries has not yet been definitively determined, to date 199 patents held by Tesla have been identified from 26 other countries. In what? All right, it tells us how many patents, but not in what. All right. List of Tesla's patents. Nice. That is what I'm talking about. The electric arc lamp, the communicator for dynamo electric machines, a regulator, another electric lamp. Let's see, what else did you do? A thermomagnetic motor, which I think after a while became the TR7. Remember that car that had the rotary motor? I think that was where that came from, by the way. Electrical transmission of power, electrical magnet motors, system of electrical distribution, method of conversion. Wow, look at all his patents. This guy's great. An alternating motor with an alternator. He came up with the alternator, huh? A regulator for the alternate current motors. So, yeah, he was a regulator guy. Go Musk. Musk, I just called him. Go Tesla. Look at this. Big on magnets, huh? All right. We use magnets in almost everything. In fact, during the tariffs, China cut us off from magnets, and Trump went crazy and started buying companies all over the world for the U.S. Now we have plenty of rare earth material to make our magnets. And he said to China, "You're never doing that to us again. Kiss our butts." That was the Mazda, huh, Neil? The rotary engine. All right, kids, now we only got 20 minutes left to take a lunch break. Let me get out of here while I still can. I'll see you cats after lunch. Anybody in the YouTube chat room, come join me in Live with Oscar, and I'll be back here in about a half an hour to do more analysis. And let me end this session. See you later, kids.